Exactly at 6:02 on a Saturday morning, I locked a heavy steel gate across their only way out. The sheriff stood beside me. The fire chief already had a key. And the HOA president, the same woman who had sued me for $4 million, was on the other side of that gate, screaming as it finally hit her that her entire neighborhood depended on a road she never owned. My name is Jack Mercer. I'm 57 years old, and my family has worked the same stretch of Wyoming land since 1921. My grandfather bought the original parcel after World War I. My father expanded it over the years, and by the time he passed it down to me, Mercer Ranch covered more than 12,200 acres. Pasture, hay fields, creek bottoms, and sagebrush hills. My wife Emily and I raised our kids here. Our son Luke works beside me every day. He spent 4 years in the Marines before coming home. Our daughter Rachel became a veterinarian in Casper. The summer all this started had been brutally dry. By late July, every rancher in the county was watching the sky. When the storm finally came, it came all at once, wind, lightning, and rain so heavy I could barely see the equipment barn from the kitchen window. It only lasted a couple of hours, but the damage took longer to uncover. The next morning, Luke and I loaded fencing supplies into the truck and headed out to the western boundary. Several sections of fence had gone down, which wasn't unusual, but what we found next was we were replacing a broken post when Luke pointed at the ground and said, "Dad, come look at this." Floodwater had washed away enough dirt to expose an old survey marker. The moment I saw it, something felt wrong. It wasn't where I remembered it being. Now, before I took over the ranch full-time, I worked as a county survey technician. I wasn't licensed, but I knew enough to recognize when something didn't add up. I checked the marker. Then I checked my GPS. Then I checked again. The coordinates didn't match the ranch records, not even close. I looked west toward Silver Creek Estates, the upscale HOA development built next to our land about 6 years earlier, and said the only thing that made sense at the time, either this marker is wrong, or somebody built a neighborhood in the wrong place. At first, I thought maybe it was a minor issue, a few feet off, maybe some paperwork mistake. I had no idea I was standing at the edge of the biggest land dispute our county had seen in decades. That Monday, I called the one surveyor I trusted enough to bet the ranch on, Tom Whitaker. Tom had spent nearly 40 years measuring property lines across Wyoming. My father trusted him, and that was enough for me. 3 days later, Tom and his crew showed up with drones, equipment, and enough gear to map half the county. I expected a small correction. Instead, every new measurement made things worse. The western boundary wasn't off by 5 feet, or 10, or 20. It was off by more than 400 feet. Tom ran the numbers 3 times. Same result every time. That Friday, he called me into his office. The moment I walked in and saw the aerial map spread across his table, I knew this wasn't a simple mistake. Silver Creek Estates wasn't sitting next to Mercer Ranch. It was sitting on Mercer Ranch. Tom pointed to the highlighted section, 117 acres, 60 homes. I just stood there staring. Every rectangle on that map represented a house. Families, backyards, pools, driveways, millions of dollars of construction sitting squarely inside my property line. Then Tom pointed to one specific lot. The house with the biggest encroachment belonged to Vanessa Holloway, the HOA president. Her home extended 92 feet onto my land. That didn't feel like coincidence. Driving home that day, I kept thinking about my father. Years before Silver Creek Estates even existed, a developer named Brandon Pierce had tried again and again to buy that western section of our ranch. My father refused every time. I once asked him why he wouldn't even consider negotiating. He told me, "Son, if someone wants your land that badly, they're hiding something." Back then, I thought he was just being stubborn. Now, I wasn't so sure. A few days later, Vanessa Holloway showed up at the ranch in a black Range Rover. She introduced herself like she was doing me a favor. No handshake, no apology, and no surprise either, which bothered me right away. She came prepared, pulled out a folder, handed me easement papers already drafted. She offered $100,000 for permanent access rights over the road and a full release of all disputed land claims. $100,000 for 117 acres and 60 homes. It wasn't an offer. It was an insult. I handed the papers back and told her no. That's when her tone changed. She folded her arms and said if we couldn't reach an agreement, they would pursue other options. I knew exactly what that meant. 3 weeks later, Silver Creek Estate sued me. The lawsuit arrived by certified mail. By page 12, they were demanding $4 million in damages. They claimed I was interfering with property rights, hurting home values, causing emotional distress, and creating uncertainty for 60 homeowners. According to them, I was the problem, not the survey, not the developer, not the fact that half a neighborhood had been built on land they didn't own. They also demanded permanent easement rights over the access road and tried to claim adverse possession over the disputed land. Publicly, the HOA launched a campaign painting me as some greedy land baron trying to destroy innocent families. Their neighborhood Facebook page exploded. Local media picked up the story. Vanessa gave interviews presenting herself as a defender of homeowners. I didn't respond publicly. I let my attorney handle it. His name was Robert Hayes, and I'd known him for nearly 20 years. Robert had a habit that always made me uneasy. The more serious a case got, the quieter he became, and he was getting very quiet. About 6 weeks into the lawsuit, I went to his office. He had 3 boxes of discovered material spread across the table: emails, permits, contracts, survey records, construction documents. He opened one box, pulled out a single printed email, and handed it to me. 1 sentence. Move the line and keep building. 6 words that changed everything. Up until that moment, I had wondered whether this all started as a mistake. After reading that, I stopped wondering. This wasn't a boundary issue anymore. It was fraud. Once discovery opened up, everything started unraveling. Tom and Robert traced the development records and found that the surveyor who approved the original subdivision wasn't even licensed in Wyoming, had never been licensed there at all. Then came the financial trail. Payments moving through shell companies, inflated invoices, money tied back to Brandon Pierce's development firm. The deeper we looked, the worse it got. At one point, I asked Robert how worried I should be about their adverse possession claim. He said, 6 weeks ago? Very. Then he tapped the email, the fake survey records, and the financial documents and said, adverse possession protects honest mistakes. It doesn't protect fraud. That was the moment I felt things start to shift. Then we found something even worse for Vanessa. Buried in an old email chain was a survey review sent to her years earlier, before she became HOA president, raising concerns about the western boundary. In other words, she knew, maybe not every detail, but enough to ask questions, enough to say something, and enough to stay quiet. That changed how I saw the homeowners. Most of them weren't my enemies. They were victims too, people who trusted the wrong developer, the wrong paperwork, and the wrong leadership. Then one afternoon, Robert asked me a strange question. Have you ever really looked at the access road? The next day, I sat in his office with Tom, staring at a map of the entrance to Silver Creek Estates. It was the only paved road connecting the neighborhood to the county highway. Everyone used it: residents, school buses, utility crews, emergency services. Tom traced the route with his finger and said, the road isn't crossing your land, Jack. It's on your land. Every foot of it, nearly 2 miles. Then Robert added the part that mattered most. There was no recorded easement, no right-of-way, no legal access agreement, nothing. For years, the entire neighborhood had been using that road because my father had once allowed access to a hunting lodge nearby. Just a handshake deal. The lodge eventually shut down, and when the developer bought the land, they just kept using the road. Nobody questioned it. Nobody checked. Until now, and under state law, a permissive license can be revoked, which meant, yes, I could close it. That was the moment I realized Silver Creek Estates had made a catastrophic mistake. They had sued the man who owned the only road into their neighborhood.